sporadic events of violence and anger popping up. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission fell short of touching even the tip of the iceberg to initiate healing. Everyone who lived under that notorious system has to say or write something and be allowed to be heard. We cannot say we have heard enough. Every story was perpetrated by the same regime, but it is different. To people who did not receive the short end of the stick, it may be easy to say that we have moved on. Change did come in 1994, but what we did not know was that freedom was the beginning of work to be put in by all parties involved. Racism is not quelled, and I am not sure if it will ever be completely eradicated from our society. If we look at the country now and the problems we continue to face in schools and the working world, they are all rooted in racism. Still, this does not negate the gains of the struggle. We progress from being an oppressed, exiled people to being in South Africa. But the fight for equality of any form, it is still not over. To quote Osho, nobody is superior, nobody is inferior, but nobody is equal either. People are simply unique, incomparable. You are you, I am I. I thank you. Homemade can't even tame. We are homemade jam, sweet enough to cut the sweetest thing your mouth has ever tasted. Thank you. So I'm an artist and I'm African. And so I believe that in every space that I occupy, I must take opportunity to remind the space of my Africanness. So here's a love letter to us. Dear South Africa, we are broken. We are the lack of sanitary pads, but the overproduction of free condoms. We are the decreasing literacy rates, but the increasing presence of churches. Dear South Africa, we are a body of schizophrenic cells that sugarcoats the reality of their wounds in massive pockets of silence that house violence. Dear South Africa, we are dancing to a dead beat while the faces on the yellow shirts are the only beat that is changing. We've had 27 years to heal, and yet our wounds remain the same. Instead, we dress our wounds in branded poverty like designer brands. Dear South Africa, you are allowed to tend to your wounds, to unwrap the wool around them and reveal that violent, blinding rage. Ma-Africa, kinako, ma-Africa. Our land demands healing. Kinako, ma-Africa. I thank you.
Let the music take you there, far from the world you know. You can feel it when you sing, then you know love. There's a joy in everything when made for love. Find love in the music. There is a melody. You'll find love. Look for love in the music. There is a melody. You'll find love. Thank you.
How do I leave it in vendor? that's what I need. I saw somebody with gorgeous pink hair. I can't spot them now, but I want a Lilizela in pink hair.
Her book gives life to those stories. Like, for me, it was really an eye-opener that every household, you know, those individuals, and that's why it's called the Unspoken Champions. You know, because we don't give credit to those other people who went to the spotlight, but who also fought with the liberation of this country. So, not to get ahead of myself, I want to turn to Pindi and ask you, I mean, what was the inspiration behind the story?
This, first of all, before I even answer your question, I want to say this is the guru of writing, and I'm right now shaking here being asked by her. She actually mentored me through this, and I thank her. Live without electricity, live without many basic things, and I was like, who is ever going to say anything on behalf of her? So to me, it's really on behalf of her, and her not being recognized as a contributor to the struggle. Why wouldn't you recognize someone like that and say, she has given birth to children whom she never spent time with each other? So to me, I think my mother was my biggest inspiration, and the other inspiration was that I wanted to keep a record of it and say, yes, here is a record, and it went like this in my story. Having said that, I also think that each and every South African has got a story.
I think it changed. I think it's changed, but I don't want to be totally negative. I think it's changed in the sense that what is education? Maybe we should first go back there. So I say here, I said something about education. There's a quote that I quoted here. What actually, because I mean, when I talk education, I talk holistic. When I talk education, I talk respect of another person. When I talk respect of another person, I talk of a lady who beat me up at school so much, but I never stopped respecting her because she was doing it for my own good, which is wrong. I mean, corporal punishment is wrong. So education right now is at a level where there is so much technology, there is so much going on, there is so much, and I'm wondering if that had been exposed then to us, where would we be? And I'm wondering if those who are now having those opportunities and those are using them. I don't know if the balance of scale is there, because I mean, we would run crazy to have a book. I would sleep with a book for weeks and run with it like this and want no one to touch it. When there were still pens to write, I used to write. I know now we write on social media like that, but one of them, Luther, interviewed me the other day and said, but why write, why read? And I said, have you ever thought of a person who wants to read 100 books because he is blind? And hardly books are being translated into Braille. But those people have been discovered that they are reading more than us. But do you know how bad they have to struggle to read? I know of someone who has just finished their book because they don't have hands, but they wrote like this. So all I'm saying is education to me is really should be appreciated and say, these are my tools, so why can't I be educated? Me who didn't have those tools, then I'm like, where would I would be far if I had those tools.
And definitely, I think with this generation, there really isn't an appreciation of what they have and how, you know, people arrived at this point. I mean, if you looked at the statistics of voter registrations, the 18-19 didn't even show up, which is sad because you don't change, you know, things by tweeting. You actually change them by voting. So in closing, Pindi, I just want to say, what do you hope this book will achieve? You know, once it's out there, what are your, you know, what's your dream with this book? Where do you want it to go? Where do you want the story to go?
First of all, I wanted to go to Matatiele. Clap hands for my I want those girls in Matatele to know that you can write a book even if you are from most rural area. You can say, put down your words in a book, and it doesn't matter how badly you write. There is Sue, there is Chanél, they will polish up your book and make it right. Having said that, I want them to stand up for me, and I want you to give them an applause. These are the ladies who... Thank you. And just to conclude also, like you said, where do I see this book? You remember I told you that I'm not doing it again, Sue. I'm not doing it again. I'm not having sleepless nights. When I see this, I see 10 more books coming. And
I'm happy to hear that, this is just the start. It's not the end of a journey. And I hope everyone who's here will buy a copy of this book. And the proceeds of this book it's also going to the Bhelekazi Foundation, which is Mama Pindi, to honor her in Bogoto in the book. I think, do yourself a favor and buy it. It's a story worth reading. We don't often hear these stories, and I think, it's a book you should have on your shelf. Thank you so much for coming, and please, we're going to have the book signing afterwards. Buy the book, and thank you once again for being with us.
So we think that alcoholism in the country is sort of a layer we put upon ourselves to remain intoxicated so that we don't experience the reality of our truth.
I think you answered the question and then you answered yourself.
Yes.
But thank you for reading so well from my book. Thank you so much, my dear. I think it does start with our healing. It is these little things. I mean, this is a 180-page book. I could not even have written. I could write a whole book about alcoholism like that, just alcoholism. But I said, let me just touch on all this. The thing is that when you seek answers, like I said it's a disease. It's not something to laugh about. It's not something to say someone does it because they're being not. There is something down there. It's like any other disease. Need to be addressed. But like you've said, that we sing everywhere and slogans and all that, but have we fully addressed HIV? Have we fully addressed alcoholism? Do we look after our mental people after ICT? All of them, so all of them combined. And I'm not separating alcoholism from any of those diseases. It's a disease. It's not like, it's not like it's something you just wake up and decide to do. So it's not like that. It takes time. It takes time. And it does need to be addressed, and I do think we have a problem in the country.
So I often, when we talk among our peers, right, there's a theory of the story of the Trojan horse, right? Are you familiar with it? That it was this gift that one kingdom brought to the next that they were in battle with. It was a big horse, right? And then they put it into as a peacemaking, as a peace offering. And when they pushed it into the kingdom, it was actually soldiers inside the horse that conquered the other kingdom that they were in battle with. With that said, do you think that, this is going to be offensive, do you think that democracy was a Trojan horse? And do you think that the TRC was a joke?
Okay.
Season matric, by the way. Season matric.
Yeah. Democracy. Democracy is very important. And I really, really, really cherish our country for choosing democracy. And by choosing democracy is not something you choose and say you're going to be democratic and then you don't practice it. So South Africa is literally really, really practicing democracy because everybody here is, you're sort of free to do what you want to do. For example, in terms of sexuality, speech, you can go and say anything and all that. And what was your other question besides democracy?
Was the TRC a joke?
Read my book. Read my book.
Thank you.
think we've got one last question here.
Yeah.
Or is it two more? Yeah, you can start and then pass the mic here.
Hi everyone. I just needed to make a statement, if I may, that the issue of alcohol, né? As far as I know, alcohol was a strategy by the apartheid government that worked towards the black people. So what I'm saying, we have to know that history, that in Soweto, for instance, there is a bar in every location. That was deliberate to make black people dependent on alcohol at that time as an escape. That's why in Soweto there are 2 swimming pools and 1 tennis court and a bar, or there were taverns. That is not pre-1994. That is not post-1994. It is pre-1994. So from contextualizing I do not condone alcohol misuse or abuse, but at times we have to be empathetic to issues, especially if we are able to put them into context. That this comes a long way, and it was used as a weapon at one point against blackness, so that we can look towards it for consolation or for an escape. And obviously things change. It will apply differently to other generations, but the context does not change. And just my question, Pindi, and congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much.
There's something that concerns me, that South Africa may mimic what has already happened in other countries within South Africa that achieved democracy before us. Okay, being that we have liberators who overthrow the colonial apartheid regime, and then thereafter, saddest of all, that we have black people overthrowing a black government. Do you think perhaps we stand the danger of going there?
Democracy, I think, has got many interpretations to many people. That is the problem. And it can also be subject to abuse. And it's not something that you see, it's something that you have to keep track as a country, that you can't now fall off track. You can't say you are democratic and then you are democratic only when it's convenient to you. So it's either you are democratic or you're not, because then it will show, the cracks will show, because you'll keep saying, oh, we're free, we're democratic, we're a democratic country, and yet it's like when the water falls in a house and you didn't see it, the cracks start showing. And then as for democracy, I think we are on track in South Africa. We are on track. We're trying to live that until maybe then, like any other African state, it gets abused along the way. I cannot guarantee that it won't happen, but right now, actually, democracy is good sometimes. Sometimes it can be painful, because we'd say, wow, if there was no democracy, I would do this. Or why doesn't just our president say this? But he can't, because it's democratic. Who is going to choose the Chief Justice? You, on the ground. You must all choose. That's democracy. I'm not going to say I'm choosing a Chief Justice, for example, as a president. got two ladies that I know, and I will gladly recommend them to you. I would not have finished it. And I want everybody here to write something.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Woo!
Oh my God, I have.
Thank you.
Young people like voice.
I want to hear you sing it with me.
Ha 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 ha!